that.
Well, thanks for
Crazy
hopping on, dude.
times.
It's good to see you. It's been a minute. Can you give the people a quick intro, who you are, what you do?
Sure. So to keep it really quick, I am a writer. I've been published in Chronicles Magazine, The American Conservative, Federalist, and I'm the host of Restoring Order. It's a podcast. You can go to patrickcasey.com. It's on Spotify. Used to be on YouTube. Was suspended, and yeah, just write, do political commentary, all that good stuff.
Let's go. I love it. Well, I want to just let's let it rip. You're on Timcast. You know the drill. Do you think civil war is imminent? Because I know that's like, a cliche at this point. It's, people are like, okay, here we go with the Civil War talk. But I really am seeing two countries here. I mean, people that are literally going up to Bovino, who's like in a Target using the bathroom and like screaming, "We don't want you here," these sort of things, simply for the crime of trying to enforce immigration laws that are on the books. Where is the off-ramp in that situation? How does this not escalate further?
That's a good question. I think there was no conceivable scenario in which Trump fulfills his mandate given to him by the American people to carry out mass deportations, and that the left just like goes along with it. So there was always going to be, unfortunately, given the insanity of the left, some chaos involved. It's not like, I'm sure a lot of Democrats support the people literally out in the streets obstructing the Renee Goods, the people obstructing. To varying degrees of severity, these ICE officers and their deportation missions. But it really is just like that radical, I don't know, 10th or something, but it's a very small amount of people that are willing to go out there and do that. And what needs to happen is you need to arrest these people, which the Trump administration is doing. You can't just arrest them for being out there. They have the right to protest, right? So you have to wait until they take things a little too far. And as we've seen from the clips, as we've seen from, the Trump administration posting the pictures, the faces, the names of people who have been arrested, specifically in Minneapolis for going after and just kind of crossing that line. You can see some of the footage outside of these detention facilities, Tate, where these guys are just waiting, DHS officers, it's just deportation agents, federal agents generally. They're waiting for these scumbags to just like do the thing that allows them to haul them into the facility and to arrest them. So it's pretty crazy but I think that the feds basically need to win in that sense. And it feels weird to say that as a right-winger, but the Trump administration needs to win, probably without using the military, without doing the Insurrection Act. We need to show that you need to respect federal officers and you don't have the right to impede them. You don't have the right to harass them, to stalk them. And, eventually you arrest enough of these people. And I think that, that kind of sends the message. But we'll see. I mean, there's really no telling where we're going.
Yeah. Well, I guess to add to that, I mean, I agree. Warren McIntyre, he put some thoughts out. He was commentating on a video where ICE was just making a routine arrest of people that were impeding their operation. And of course, they were met with a bunch of resistance, these sorts of things. And the thing he said, it jumped out to me was, like, we've kind of joked around about it in the past, but we kind of do need a degree of reconstruction going on in the United States. Like, we do need something sort of approximating that to truly sort of reestablish some common ground. So it's not just two completely opposing factions, but just two parties, proposing maybe disagreements on economic policy. Right. Do you agree with his consensus? I mean, because that's strong language, but I look at that and I'm not balking at that anymore.
Yeah, so many people have noticed this division that, even if the Republicans are able to win elections, there are a lot of people out there who are, even if they're not in the majority, are just not going to, agree to disagree at the end of the day. And I think the reason for that, a big part of that, is that there used to be a broad consensus or a broad center in American politics. If you go back, people love bringing up the fact that, Barack Obama, it was either his initial campaign or his reelection campaign. I think it was as late as his reelection campaign, that Barack Obama said that he believed marriage was a man and a woman. Yeah. This is Barack Hussein Obama, right?
Yeah.
Flash forward a few years later, then you've got Tucker Carlson on Fox News, saying that he believes that gay marriage is essentially a good thing. This is the right's like scariest, most right-wing pundit. Hillary Clinton supported a border wall. You have Biden supporting the '94 crime bill. That was a good thing.
Yeah.
I know, I see conservatives trying to own Joe Biden when he was in office. The '94 crime bill was like pretty good. We believe in law and order.
Right.
So that's just like, there used to be a broad consensus. Now there isn't that broad consensus on like basic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like children cannot become and should not become transgender.
Mm-hmm.
That, we need to actually have some level of security, ideally robust security at the southern border. And of course, law and order, that, we need to support law enforcement. We do not side with criminals, with illegal aliens over, the good men and women in law enforcement, federal, state, local, whatever, who are just trying to enforce the law. So the fact that we don't have a consensus on that means there's going to be some pretty severe polarization. I don't think we're going to see, actual civil war or anything of the sort. But it just means that, when we're trying to accomplish an agenda that was very popular, mass deportations were not exactly a secret,
Right.
that Trump was going to do that when he was elected. That was a central promise to his campaign. And so Trump needs to deliver that. But yeah, it really isn't a good sign for a country to not be able to agree on things that previously were, fairly consensus on both sides of the aisle. So it's really kind of, again, no telling where we're headed.
Yeah, that was what really jumped out to me with the Renee Good shooting. Is, a lot of people were saying like, what drives a society where their middle-aged women are going out and being foot soldiers for this, this cause or whatever. And I look at that and I'm like, all of this started literally because Nick Shirley walked around and exposed like the most obvious fraud in history. Like, it's like a scandal of utmost proportion. The fact where he scalped a Democrat governor. I mean, that's how bad the fraud was. That's how all of this started. Kirsty Noem says, yeah, we're going to send some DHS agents in there to mop it up. That's what kicked all of this off. That's what started this entire unrest, so to speak, in Minneapolis. I mean, what does that say where you have these women like Renee Good, who like literally are willing to put their lives on the line for fraudsters, for murderers, for rapists, like literally the worst aspects of American society. And they're willing to literally die for those people with kids at home. I mean, I know we're hitting on it, but like, again, I'm just trying to figure out, how do you get out of that? I mean, that is brainwashing of the utmost proportion.
Yeah, you're right. So those people are, unfortunately, they're not going anywhere. You can't, despite what some people on Twitter would like to have happen, you can't just lock people up for being a libtard, essentially. And as far as I'm aware, the Trump administration is not currently working on
us all.
Yeah, I wouldn't count on Congress introducing any legislation to fix that. Maybe if we get rid of the filibuster, we'll see. But in all seriousness, this is something Curtis Yarvin has dealt with as well. Just the idea of like, okay, even if you like we almost do have red and blue America, two pretty different countries in a way that, even a few decades ago, the division was not this stark, and the things that people bickered over politically were not like basic civilizational, things, basic prerequisites for civilization, like having, law enforcement or having a border. So I don't know. Curtis Yarvin, one thing he will point out is look up denazification and what it took in Germany to totally expunge Nazism. And you say totally, and it's like, yeah, I guess there's still some like, neo-Nazi biker gangs or something. Sure. So it's, they're not really a serious force in German society. But what it took to totally stamp out Nazism in Germany was really extreme. Mm-hmm. And I don't think American conservatives really have the stomach for doing that to libs. And I think in any society, you're going to have people that lean a little more liberal, a little more conservative. Again, so it's about trying to reestablish that center. And you just need political power at the end of the day. That's not enough. There are always going to be Renee Goods who are trying to subvert and sabotage totally reasonable, popular, plans, right-wing policy, sort of platforms. But it's if you have power and you're using it in the right way, and ideally, on a long enough timeline, it's you rack up enough wins, those people don't feel as emboldened,
Hmm.
right? Because if the Renee Goods of America are just sitting at home and complaining on Reddit,
Yeah.
then that's not really a problem. The
Yeah.
problem is when the Renee Goods of America are going out and putting federal law enforcement in self-defense situations, when they're ramming federal law
Hmm.
enforcement with their cars. So what I'm hoping happens here is we're able to triumph essentially in Minneapolis. We're able to DHS is able to pull off its operation successfully, and that it sends a message that look, you can go out there and you're just going to get arrested.
Yeah.
You have the right to protest, but anything beyond that, which obviously, if you've seen any of the footage, the freaks in Minneapolis are going well beyond.
Hmm.
But yeah, there's a longer question, Tate, a broader discussion that needs to be had about, what is going to happen in this country when,
Hmm.
even as the right wins, elements of the left grow increasingly desperate and turn to violence, terrorism, and these sorts of things. The last I'll say on this is, people notice that the resistance, if you remember that from Trump's first term, was not here after Trump won.
Yeah.
You had this in 2017, you had just this wave of like all of these, liberals and like influencers, Democrat officials, all of that. And it was that there was very little of that after Trump won. Like
Hmm.
a lot of institutions buckled to Trump, tech, like the business world. And but the left, that doesn't mean everyone gave up on the left. It means that the left realized it was losing, and the more radical elements became even more radicalized. And
Yeah.
that's why you're seeing a lot of the stuff that you've seen. That's why you saw, of course, the horrific assassination of Charlie Kirk. This is what you saw in the 60s and the 70s as well, with the
Hmm.
Weather Underground and the Black Liberation Army, these like straight up left-wing terrorist organizations, right? That they did that because the 60s didn't turn into a straight up communist revolution. There's a lot of like commie stuff in the 60s,
Yeah.
but you had Nixon that won in what, 68, and from that point on, the leftists were like, wait, this wasn't what's supposed to happen. So they turned to terrorism.
Yeah.
And you're seeing that again now.
Yeah. I've always made that point. I'm like, the reason they're doing this, the reason that they do kill Charlie Kirk is because, in a way, they do feel backed into a corner. So, in a weird way, it's an indication that we are winning. But it just, furthers the point that, like, this is why you have to really stamp out every level that you have legally available to you. Because, I mean, that's sort of the thing. Like, we're talking about the two different things. I kind of want to almost steel man maybe the people on the right that are a little uncomfortable with what's going on, because I actually understand it. I mean, we're on Rumble. This audience especially has been tapped into the political zeitgeist for a long time. They, experienced the Biden winner. They are tapped into the news cycle every day. I can understand the impulse to be almost hesitant when you see the federal government making these, broad overtures, making these, decisive decisions, because we're so used to that apparatus being weaponized against right wingers. It's been this way for 60, 70 years. Even when Republicans were in office, it's still in many ways, this entire apparatus was pointed towards, for all intents and purposes, oppressing the right. I mean, making it more difficult for us to enact our means, these sorts of things. So I can actually kind of, to a degree, understand why you're seeing a lot of these commentators on the right sort of stick their head up and kind of counter signal, for lack of a better word, some of these actions the Trump administration is making. What would your sort of pitch be to those people? Or maybe not pitch, but what would your sort of message be towards those people who are like, I don't know, what if they turn this back around on us in 4 years? Like, are we sure this is the correct direction to go?
So here's what I think would happen. Let's say worst case scenario, Vance gets the nomination. Vance getting the nomination. So that's not the worst case scenario. Vance gets the nomination. Whoever gets the nomination loses on the Republican side, and you get President Newsom or something. President Newsom is going to gut ICE, is what he's going to do.
Mm-hmm.
The likelihood of him keeping ICE and deploying ICE agents to harass, I guess normal Americans, it's just that isn't what ICE does, basically.
Yeah.
And so I wouldn't worry about that. I mean, I understand, especially if you have more libertarian inclined members of the audience. They're people that are part of the MAGA coalition, to be sure. Some of them. It's just not going to happen. Also, the Democrats will like do what they can to screw with the right, but they're not going to be sending ICE agents to like hunt right-wing people down because they posted something critical of the Democrats or something online. That's just not really what it would look like. Getting, they really want to gut ICE because they'll be afraid that, if they keep ICE the same like huge level of, with as many ICE agents, with all of the funding that ICE has received under Trump thanks to the big beautiful bill, that it's going to be, that in the next Republican administration they're going to use it. So like the next time the Dems get power, they're going to try to gut ICE. Whether or not they abolish it remains to be seen. Those calls are obviously sort of resurfacing here, but I think that I think on some level the Democrats understand that they have to like at least pretend to be doing border security.
Yeah.
So I think they would gut ICE, but they would say they're making it more efficient. They're just saying, oh, we're not using this. So I'm actually not worried about that. Now, there's a separate argument that, seeing seeing the feds rolling, like a few hundred deep. I mean, overall, there are thousands of federal agents in Minneapolis, which, as far as I'm concerned, is a good thing,
Right.
Given how lawless and anarchic it's become. There's an optics concern though, right? Because we have to win, elections, we have to win midterms, we have to win. So, you can't just go like super hardcore and ignore public opinion. And there's some evidence that public opinion is kind of, people kind of soured a bit on the deportations, but that is what Trump was elected to do. So, and it's necessary for the country. So I'm a little more sympathetic to that one. Is is this going to hurt us long term politically? And that's why I think it's important. Ultimately you do need to dispatch like ICE agents to go, because these guys are not just going out. These guys are when they converge on a city like this, they are prioritizing. Doesn't mean they're only going for the criminals, but they're prioritizing like the straight up hardened criminals. This guy Jonathan Ross, the hero ICE patriot who shot in self-defense Renee Good, when he previously was run over, he was dragged 300 feet, Tate. And his arm was because he had tried to break into the window of the car. The guy wasn't getting out, standard law enforcement stuff. His arm was caught in like the jagged broken glass. He needed 33 stitches. And you know what? This illegal that he was trying to get, and I think they did get eventually, was a convicted child molester. So like, wow, when they're sending the feds in, these are the people, this is the scum that Renee Good and these other delusional, anti-ICE libtards are trying to keep literally on the streets, keep in our country, and it is totally despicable. So I think at the end of the day, these deportations are something that you need to have done. But at the very least, we want to minimize, there's going to be some friction, right? There's going to be a little chaos. We don't want to lean into that too much. On social media, official government Twitter accounts probably shouldn't highlight protesters getting owned by pepper spray or something of the sort. Even though I like it, but I can we'll see the clips from other accounts. Yeah. So we just got. I think the optics concern is good. And also the last thing I'd say is we also have to work toward during Operation Wetback, which prior to this was the biggest mass deportation campaign in American history, there was a 1-to-10 ratio of someone who was deported, like physically removed from the country, and people who self-deported. Why? Because the other illegals are like, holy cow, and I think that's part of Trump's tactics. Yeah. If you're in a city and you see like thousands of ICE agents, and it's literally the only thing people are talking about in American media, you bet if you're an illegal immigrant, you're getting the hell out of there. I've seen like libs who are not illegal saying like, I'm getting out of Minneapolis. I'm scared. So obviously illegals are scared as well. So we want there to be mass deportations, and a lot of that is going to happen obviously through self-deportations. The last thing I'll say is we don't have to physically remove all of them. Putting on like a big scary show is, it might spook voters a little bit, but yeah, it's helping get these people out on their own, which is the ideal way of doing it. You don't want to have to physically haul every one of these, I don't know how many tens of millions of illegals out of the country. And other things like E-Verify, other things like making it harder for illegals to get driver's licenses, jobs, these sorts of things. I know a lot of this happens at the state level, but these sorts of measures need to happen in conjunction with the physical removals that ICE so far is doing a pretty good job of doing.
Well, yeah, because I mean that's the response people give with the optics question. They're like, well, it's not politically prudent to conduct these sort of shock and awe operations. My counterpoint is like, You know what's not politically prudent is if you take your time and you're a little slower on these things and they start having kids and they stay in the country and they vote. Like, that's much more politically inexpedient than just like ripping the Band-Aid now. You take like 5 points off in the polls. You can make that back up by the midterms. Because there's something to be said. I mean, other guests have, mentioned this on the show, is like, look, the American news cycle spins very fast. It's a hamster wheel. So people will get adjusted to the new standard, so to speak. So it's like, as you raise the ante, given enough time, people get used to that. And then you have again, to spook people, you would have to raise the ante again. Because this is the point I've made. Part of the reason people are so dissatisfied, not everybody, but a proportion of the base is dissatisfied with sort of Trump's performance on immigration so far, is because they got used to the new elevated standard. I mean, I make this point all the time. Like, we're at net negative migration. Like, how crazy is that? Like, 5 years ago, if you advocated for net negative migration on a conservative panel, you would have gotten like tossed off and called a white supremacist or something.
Right.
And then now that's the official policy of the United States government. And it's like well overdue. I mean, in many ways, we probably ran out of time like 15 years ago. So it's well overdue. But it's like, we kind of had to stop. It's easy for people like Zoomers, especially. I mean, because I was 14 when Trump came down the escalator. Like, I only know politics in the context of Trump. So maybe it's important to like look back and say, even compared to Trump 1, hey, we've moved the football like 20, 30 yards down the field. If we just keep with this momentum, we're going to be okay. We're actually going to win. I mean, again, this is sort of reorienting this entire apparatus. It takes more than, 6 months or 9 months or however long we're in a year now. We have 3 years left. Vance is in decent shape, or, the Republican Party in general is poised to at least be competitive in 28. Like, let's just take our time, because again, and then you'll have these people. It's a lot of people on the left too, where they're like critical of the optics and the shock and all, but then they're also like complaining about how the mass deportations are too slow. I'm like, what did you think this was going to look like? I got clipped by Media Matters because I said like, when the podcast bros were like, "Wow, these ICE videos, they look pretty bad. Like, I don't know, this seems a little too brutal." And I just said, like, what did you think? What did you think an ICE operation looked like? Do you think these people are just going to comply? These are literally hardened criminals. Of course, it's going to get a little like ugly. That's just how this works. And then they clip me as if this was supposedly like I'm some crazy radical.
It's a crazy thing to say.
Yeah.
How could you? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just like,
I
know you're seeing the same stuff, and it's just like, let's stop and
there's
take a look at where we are.
There's a lot of idiocy online. It is what it is. Look, during the first Trump term, Trump has done more in 1 year than he did in his first term, and that's what a lot of people have forgotten. Also, no one was talking about most of these issues, certainly not at the national political level. In 2012, when Romney was challenging Barack Obama in one of their presidential, one of the debates, the moderator asked Mitt Romney, "What would you do about all of these illegals in the country, or some equivalent, something along those lines?" And he said he advocated for self-deportation. Now we hear that and we say, "Well, yeah, but that's just you have to do something to make these people self-deport."
Right.
Well, even just saying something as milquetoast as that garnered immense, created a lot of controversy. Even Reince Priebus, who was the chair of the RNC at that time, he denounced those comments as, and I quote, heinous. So this is the pre-Trump GOP. And you Zoomers out there, especially you younger ones, I know you get it, Tate, but some of them have just, all they've known politically is Trump. So they're like, why isn't Trump opened up a portal to Agartha yet? It's like, well, first of all, that was never really one of his campaign promises. Maybe we wait till 28 with Vance and he will deliver something, promise something like that on the campaign trail. But it, people just get really accustomed. Things change for the better, and then they become accustomed to that as the new normal, and then they resume their high expectations. And it's okay to have high expectations. You just have to be realistic. There are a lot of things that I would like Trump to do that he's not going to do. I would like an immigration moratorium or some kind of legislation that would considerably limit legal immigration into this country, because a lot of the bad stuff that happens, Tate, through immigration happens regardless of whether the people come in legally or illegally. Look at Minneapolis. When they're busting these fraud rings, most of the Somalis who get charged are U.S. citizens.
Mhm.
These are not people that like should have been had that offer to become citizens in the first place.
Yeah.
So there's stuff that we can be critical of with Trump, but you just got to remember things have moved very far in the right direction. There's a lot of good stuff happening,
Mhm.
and there are people online that are trying to turn you against Trump because selling outrage porn is the only way that they can stay relevant as influencers. So you people, watching this in the audience, I would encourage them to just kind of be on the lookout for
Yeah.
that. Are these people? A lot of these people are trying to lead you astray. They're trying to turn you against Trump, because they're more concerned with their own career as
Mhm.
an influencer. Um,
Yeah.
so it's but yeah, no, things are going pretty well overall. There's a lot that needs to happen in the remainder of Trump's second term. But like I said, in his first term, on basically every major issue, on immigration, right, ended the border crisis almost overnight.
Yeah.
And people don't give him really credit for that. It's, I guess, just once you solve a problem, then no one's talking about it anymore. But yeah, he spent 4 years during his first term, like trying to figure out how to get a handle on the southern border, and he just, by the end, he figured out what to do. Okay, well, like by week one of this term, he basically solved the problem. We've
Mhm.
got net negative migration, as you pointed out. He secured the single greatest increase in immigration enforcement funding in U.S. history. He's taken an axe to this anti-white sort of civil rights bureaucracy. He's done the most damage to anti-white discrimination and similar policies since these policies were introduced in the 60s.
Mhm.
Everyone wants to talk about Reagan and Nixon, these sort of anti-deep state, um, like meritocracy figures, I guess. Although Nixon was the last of the sort of the Great Society presidents, but they did nothing even remotely approaching what Donald Trump has done to combat this insane race communist bureaucracy that's
Yeah.
festered in the American government. So there's a lot of other great stuff that's happened just in the first year, and I'm sure there's plenty more to come.
Yeah. That was so funny. The clip the other day with Trump, where he was just kind of like off. This is how you know he just instinctually understands these things, because he was just like kind of throwing the idea around with the anti-white racism, sort of how to combat it, and he's just like, yeah, they're just like really getting roughed up out there. Like he doesn't have these like elaborate political philosophies and like these nerdy like wonky policy institutes that he's reading. He just instinctually understands a lot of these issues right away. Sometimes the policy comes out, a little sloppy sometimes, but it's like, again, you just look at these things, you look at the record, you look at the wins we've had, and you're like, this is just clearly someone who instinctually understands these things. This is clearly someone who is able to assemble a team that's directionally correct. And I just don't really understand why you would throw something in the spokes other than, like you said, that's just kind of self-interest almost. And this was so interesting when Trump won. I didn't understand this impetus from a lot of people, a lot of really, guys that I respect and like a lot, where they were saying like, look, the conservative movement is not poised to govern. They're not poised to lead. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, Trump, like this team he's assembling is fantastic. I didn't realize he was talking about everyone else. I didn't realize that they were talking about like, as soon as we are in a position to lead, suddenly we
Yeah.
would lose faith in ourselves to wield power, and people would get like suspicious or skeptical, and it would just turn into a massive dogpile. And that, in many ways, is what's happened. But I mean, that's why Trump. It's great that he's president, because that gives us something to rally around. But yeah, with that, Pat, I want your final thoughts, and more importantly, where people can find you for more.
Great. Final thoughts. Well, you really can't respect the officers who are going out and doing this work enough.
Yeah.
They really, if you know any of them, buy them a drink or something, basically, because these people understand, especially in the aftermath of the Jonathan Ross shooting, justified shooting of Renee Gold, that they're risking their reputations. I mean, his family basically had to go into hiding. You know how insane
Mhm.
people on the other side are. They're risking, obviously they're putting their lives on the line. They're risking their safety. They're risking, dad not coming home.
Yeah.
It's crazy stuff, and also they're risking the potential for serious legal problems in the event that whenever there's a subsequent Democrat administration. So these guys and gals, because I guess some of them are women too, deserve all of our respect.
Mhm.
They deserve praise on social media. That's what little we can do. But
Yeah.
I know people involved in this sort of work, and yeah, they like they're on social media. They like, it's good to see that there are people out there that that don't hate them. So we just definitely have to let that be known. And yeah, that's basically all I have here. So yeah, people can go to patrickcasey.com. They can follow me on X at Restore Order USA, and that's also my Instagram username. I'm newly on Instagram. I,
Let's
I made
go.
one in 2020 and was banned in 24 hours. Not even for anything I posted, just like, hey, there's this right wing guy on. I'll get this guy off. But now I'm on there, and
Let's go.
I appear to be lasting. So
He's got some good reels on there. Unk still got it. Unk has still
Unk
got
still
it.
got it. That's
Yeah,
right.
it's so true. So, well, Pat, thank you so much for hopping on, man. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, Tate.
Alrighty. Well, that was a great Pat Casey. That was fantastic. Yeah, it's so true. I mean, the incentive structure on the right for the longest time has bended towards contrarianism, has bended towards, nitpicking, these sorts of things, and it's totally justified. I'm not downplaying that. But Pat laid out pretty well, like, things are directionally correct. Things are moving in the right direction. Minneapolis, I agree. Like, if we can mop this up without having to, like, completely break everything, that's great, because we still have to win elections. I mean, it's unfortunate, but it's true. So with that, we're going to get the raid for Devori Darkins going. Serge, I don't know if you want to get that fired up. I'll wind down the show here. We're like a minute over time. So thank you very much for watching on this beautiful, beautiful Monday. Great to be back. And we'll have some more exciting stuff over the week heading for you. We got Timcast IRL tonight at 8 p.m. Be there or be square. Follow me on X and Instagram at Real Tate Brown. Come hang out. We're having a great time as always, and we're going to send you all over to Devori Darkins, and you guys can go hang out with him. With that, we'll see you tonight.